So thank you very much for inviting me. I don't know if this is what's pointing to me, the camera, or so. Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Bond, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, particularly now that I am turning 21 years in New Zealand and a degree from the School of Business, a Master of Entrepreneurship. So I want to talk about a decadal project that we have, which is, we call it Whakarongo ki te whenua, and the intersection of the two main industries of New Zealand, which are the primary sector and technology, which are both at the top generators of GDP. So let's see, how can I move this? And now I can. Yes, thank you. So as a personal introduction, people always ask me, where are you from? So it's easier for me just to visually say that I'm born in Uruguay from Hungarian parents living in New Zealand since 2003. And these are my 3 official personal passports. So happy to discuss further personal stories, but let's keep going. There we go. So high-level agenda, introduction of me, Nicolás Erdödy, Open Parallel, Listen to the Land, Multicore World 2025. Background, the concept of agricultural revitalization, which is what I'm trying to present today here. What's happening around in the world, what we can use. So this is not a talk about breakthroughs, but more putting things together. And that's aligned with my degree in New Zealand. I have a Master of Entrepreneurship from the School of Business. So technically, I am trained to create new ventures, new ecosystems. Once they are up and running, I pass it to MBAs who destroy them, who manage them. So I've created about 25 companies. And anyway, so the rest of the agenda we will see around. So what could go wrong? It's a view of certain things that are happening, the vision of the project, Listen to the Land, what we have done for a number of years. And what interests me to debate is what I've been asking around in technology and what I see what's next for the project, and then a few extra questions that if we have time, we will go through that. Sorry, now I know how to do. Open Parallel is my company, established in 2010. We do essentially three things. We support tech, so large companies hire us. I put together a team. We have a project. I'm the program director. We have a project director. We do platforms for them. I've been doing that for 15 years. Then we are involved in large projects, both in scale and time. And they are also like the Square Kilometre Array Radio Telescope and also with government. And what is the easiest way to hire us is either consulting or do a retainer in business development, which is pre-sales. It's much more strategic. But I thought it was interesting to just present that here. We do the conference Multicore World as a strategic way to do outreach of our work. And unfortunately, this screen sharing thing covers the final sentence here. Okay. So for this audience, I had a formal relationship with the university for nearly 20 years, not just as a graduate here. I mean, I have my studies in Uruguay, South American hydraulics. I learned Fortran there, civil engineering and calculus and math. But there is a place in the Center for Innovation that reminds that this university was the first center of excellence in a technology called OpenSpark in the world after it was a very funny project that we had in the 2005, 2008. So, context. There are 3 big things that, as an entrepreneur, at some stage, at age and circumstances, you start to think about what's the world that we live in and what's the world that I want my grandchildren to live in. So you start to think more from shareholders to stakeholders for the people of the land, for the further generations. So 3 things came to mind: the climate, the food, and the natural event problems. And of course, the classic words, mitigation, adaptation, and regarding the problems with food that this audience should be aware of. What do we have in common with these 3 things? All can be analyzed with certain similar data sets. If you take measurements from a piece of land of a number of variables, they can be useful around climate, around food production, about prediction of natural events. And everything can go in a very small way or towards mega projects, big science, which requires big compute. And that's where I keep saying, okay, I'm facing this problem. High performance computing, HPC, must be able to help. So that's the motivation. I mean, usually you start something because you have an itch. That's entrepreneurship 101. And from there, you start to figure out, okay, how do we put things together? How do I see the world? I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs look at the small problem and then stay there. And then they struggle when the world tells them, hey, we are actually not interested. And my approach is different. It's from the big picture to the small details, which is something that we will try to discuss here. Can we move? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, yes. Now, why do I say that I have some credentials to talk about this? Well, the Square Kilometre Array was the largest civil engineering and scientific project that New Zealand has been involved at leadership positions, not participation. We have extremely clever people in this country, but people who has actually designed and defined the roadmap of the project, that's a different question. So, but we are not talking about radio telescopes. What I want to highlight here is a couple of things. A radio telescope captures data. Doesn't matter how, but it has been planned to process originally 157 terabytes per second. Allow me to pause there and imagine that you have a hard disk, which is 1 or 2 terabytes, let's say 1. Then you're throwing yourself 157 every second after second, and you need to store it. I mean, in a relatively short period of time, you already filled this room. So what I'm trying to say is that that was the original thought. Later, the vision versus reality downgraded to an order of the magnitude, but still is a monumental amount of process. And well, we've been privileged to get involved with this. These are a couple of papers that are public, sorry, not paper, memos, which are stuck somewhere in the University of Cambridge. That's a different story, but myself and Dr. Richard O'Keefe, who is in the audience, co-authored these couple of things that inspire me to go into how can we use this? Which are the applications of this knowledge into the primary sector? Which this audience will be familiar with this. These are facts, factoids. The numbers are outrageous independently if I had them exactly right or not. But anyone who comes to this sector without getting used to, it's just outrageous. People just take it for granted. I started to remember on my days when I go to a farmer's market in Uruguay 40 years ago, and after the pray day, what was remaining was just thrown away. Then the homeless people took it, and what was still thrown away, then the dogs came, and then everyone was thrown away, and was perfectly edible food. So these are just things that we all know, and we say, okay, this is part of the world that we live in. Like, again, wars or homeless people, why do we have to accept it? It's a fact. Why do we need to accept it? And COVID augmented these sort of things, particularly the supply chain disruptions. But these are standard problems that we have. But again, as an entrepreneur, I used to be a venture capitalist. Well, you need to put things, okay, what's a system? What's a system where things are operating? Which are the variables? Which are the risks? People think that people who start things, entrepreneurs, are risk takers in a wild way. Well, actually, it's not totally true. It's a calculated risk. You take a decision, but before taking the decision, you have the best information possible. And based on that, you say, okay, should I go? Should I not go? I hope that is self-explanatory, but this is the context where I started to think. And I started to think about these topics about 7, 8 years ago. And then I started to do, again, in a non-partisan approach, okay, I want to enter into this field, I'm a newbie. How do I learn? Let's go to a conference. Even better, let's present something in the conference. Even better, let's see if we can present a poster or a paper or something. And then in 2017 in Hamilton, the, I don't know, 7th or 8th or whatever number of the Global Precision Agricultural Conference was in Hamilton, New Zealand. And we presented a poster about how to optimize irrigation with some algorithms from the internet. That was in a corner, but I went there to learn and came up with this set of 5, let's call it core challenges. And I presented that, and for the past 7 years, I've been submitting this as, call it factoids perhaps, but no one has been disputing it. They're giving flavors of here and there, but I found a useful framework to organize where are we thinking. First thing, which is where I have some, I'm not sure if call it authority, but at least experience, every technology that you use in the primary sector is old, outdated. If you want me to be polite, let's call it mature. There is nothing wrong with what I'm saying in a provocative way, but you need to realize that this technology is coming to your sector once has been not only proven, but most of the time even discarded. So you are receiving in some way the remnants of something which was breakthroughs in other industries, many cycles again. I use an extreme example, like in the pharma, that you have, I don't know, a new medication that FDA approves and then goes to the market. But one thing is to test it, I don't know, in 5,000 subjects, and then suddenly 5 million are using it. And then suddenly you have some stuff happens. So they withdraw it from the American markets, you withdraw it from the European market, but you have all, like still, I don't know, 25 billion pills to market. So you throw it to Africa or Asia or places where you have lower control. That's my extreme analogy about outdated things. Now, these technologies, and the people in the IT world, we saw this movie 50 years ago. So there were whole companies like IBM that gave you an entire solution from hardware, software, everything. But then when you integrate, and that was enough for the problem of an organization, but in the primary sector, the systems need to be integrated. So you have heterogeneity problems, integration issues, and regulations. I mean, reality dictates that things need to abide to certain aspects, either in Europe or in different parts of the world. And every entrepreneur knows that the regulation is the best way to create a new market. And finally, cybersecurity. Things happen. And the lack of knowledge about all the things that could go wrong, it's just astounding. The problem that in the primary sector not necessarily have lives to be lost, like in a self-driven vehicle that has a crash on an intersection. Anyway, 5 challenges: all technology, heterogeneity, integration, regulations, and cybersecurity. And this will continue through the presentation, if I can make it work. Yes. Am I going too fast? No. Yes. The other context is how computing has been progress. I mean, everyone, even if you're 18 or 68, you have seen that the computing systems has been progressing at very big speed. So, and in the primary sector, some people think that we are still in the era of digitize everything, which in an IT context is on the 80s. Network everything, yes, some organizations have that. Then networking and mobile and cloud, these things are happening. But in my world, we are here. And exascale, it's a technical concept which has no meaning more than the number of calculations per second. But what I'm trying to show with this graph, which is in the public domain, is how why I say that the technology that's in the primary sector is outdated. The other context that I want to show is, so that the previous graph was seen from the IT world. This is from the let's call it primary sector work. That's courtesy of Dr. Jacques Wolfer from Wageningen University, and shows how the world of technology is seen from people who are technology takers, not in a passive way, but they are, by default, they don't see themselves as a new technology creators. This is the technology, we have the challenge, we go from there. Again, the graph is self-explanatory, and I've been showing this for years. I mean, the slide is from 2020. Everyone relates to it in one way or other. Not many people relate to the whole ecosystem, but people say, okay, we have cloud computing, which deals in some way with smart sensing, but in the health. And so everyone links one thing to the other. That's the interesting part of this slide. What I did, yes. Now, going to what's available. And again, apologies if you cannot see the details. The point is not to highlight them. But when I say available, it's from my work, from the technology work. This graph, again, it's been shared by Professor Ian Foster from the University of Chicago. And when people speak about precision agriculture or agri-tech, essentially they look, okay, this is a farm, and then we have some satellites and drones and sensors. Wow, that's already cool. That's already much more than you had in many, many, many generations. And then you have cloud-based analytics and a virtual farm, and that's state of the art. Now, guess what? All this is happening because all these things are happening underneath. And just to highlight a few names, systems integration, things that are getting together, technology-based plane, which is the sensor networking, the security, the low power of the sensors, because you can corrupt all the data there. You can destroy a crop. You can destroy an economy if you want to do sabotage on purpose or not. You need to get used to words like spoofing and tampering, which is a way that you make these systems work in a way that they shouldn't intended to. So I think I present this as a visual guide that things are happening under the hood. And what I want to highlight is that these things are controlled by someone. I mean, there is a massive industry here. And the people who knows and who build, like the people, the corporations, the organizations, the countries that build this, not necessarily have the primary sector in mind when they do that, and not necessarily have the interests of a country, and not necessarily have your interest in mind. So when I say what's available first, and when I say available for the purpose of the project that I'm trying to elaborate to present here is, okay, open source software. If you are not familiar with the concept, find out. It's very important. If you are, we will talk about it. But the concept of open source is that you can access it. It's in some way the opposite of proprietary, but it's a very broad discussion. Now, open source hardware and RISC-V means that the standards to build hardware now are available, are open. Why would I care? I just want to farm. Guess what? Every piece of technology that you put in the farm comes from somewhere. Guess what? You can control that unless you choose not to. This is not about building a car in your backyard, as we used to 100 years ago. This is building the entire system of data capture, not necessarily yourself, but the microelectronics cluster in Christchurch, for example, could do a magnificent job on this, which brings affordable sensors, computer vision on those sensors, artificial intelligence, of course, and massive amount of data. But the interrogation marks means that, is that good data? It's corrupted data, the data that we can relate to. And then this is a little bit more esoteric. My topology means that how do I put these sensors? How do I route the information? Can I change things in thanks to operating systems? And I will continue mentioning the concept of digital twins and systems of systems. Every farmer can tell you that I have a system. I farm following this system. And if you push a little bit, you will see that has a system on top of those, on top of that. There is an entire theory about how complex system works or fail. We present in this lecture the digital nervous system that we believe that Aotearoa could benefit with. Now, I've been looking around for inspiration, and just the headlines here. The SKA was a large project that I was personally involved in. I was exposed to Destination Earth, which is a European project currently on the making, about building the digital twin of the Earth for weather prediction, for weather modeling. I've been exposed to the people, I will mention that. We discussed technology, it's interesting, and it's flawed for a number of reasons. They don't have access to their own computing resources. They depend on other computing resources. They want to build a digital twin of Earth, but not using in a balanced way the data from the Northern Hemisphere versus the Southern Hemisphere. But the project that I want to highlight is the CyberSyn, which is, you can access it in Wikipedia. This was more than 50 years ago, but they had a real application. And there are political implications at the time, but it was using a theory of management or operations research. They were able to survive, for example, a truck driver's strike, which paralyzed the country, but only with 5 or 10%, they were still able to mobilize goods from one place to other. And they described this sort of data control system, which was destroyed after the coup d'etat. But it's funny how, I mean, people will think at Star Wars or the Enterprise or something, and everything looks very techy, but I need to highlight that this is not a whiteboard, it's a green. So how technology and science fiction and concepts, some of them are very advanced, others still stick. This was designed in 50, 60 years ago. Anyway, when I say competitors, large corporations are into the primary sector. So Alphabet is the mother company of Google. NVIDIA today is the most valuable company on earth and has a platform that creates, in my opinion, a lot of solutions, but also risks on dependence. And corporations vertically integrating everything. And I use John Deere as an example, and it's not as the bad guys, but it's like Apple. Suddenly you have Apple here and there, or Microsoft. So think on terms this, again, from an entrepreneurial point of view, I'm trying to see how is the world that I'm planning to build stuff. Okay, sorry, here it is. When you do stuff, you need to go out there to the world. And I wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, I love this. This is at the University of Arizona. Also, I'm in Arizona in Tucson, but then they took me to Yuma, Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture. And I learned that the lettuce that they grow there feeds the entire United States under the premise that if it grows in Arizona, it grows everywhere. So they have, I saw many interesting technology. I want to highlight this, sorry for the funny face, but this is ARM, which is one of the large companies in the world that actually does the chips. So this is one of the directors there. In order to put my thinking together, I go and ask people who are doing similar things. And want to highlight, again, silly photo. This gentleman is Dr. Niels Weddy, for the Director of Technology of the Destination Earth, of the digital twin that I mentioned in the European Union just a minute. And I want to highlight how we can aim very, very big and complex systems, leveraging the knowledge that New Zealand or people who are from New Zealand have in the world. I mean, which are the chances that Dr. Niels Weddy loves to do paragliding in Omarama outside in the Waitaki district? It's a fact. So surprise me with that conversation. So a 10 minutes conversation become a 3 hours chat. That's how you build a relation. Now, this here is from the University of Chicago, and this is a mega sensor that has also AI and computer vision capabilities there. It's a project that we are partnering. Director is Dr. Peter Beckman from Northwestern University. This is Supercomputing Conference. But what I'm saying is that when you can install hundreds of this, and then suddenly you can map a lot of things there. And this is the University of Texas, and Professor Karen Wilcox is the global authority on digital twins. Guess she's from West Oakland, and the great parents are from Waimate. So putting together the New Zealand angle can take us very interesting places. Okay, sensors. Sensors, this is a sensor. You will see a harvester, but this is a sensor which has actually, I mean, a set of 300 sensors that process 15,000 measurements per second. Let me rephrase that. 15,000 measurements per second, each machine. And that collects all this data here. On a typical day, John Deere records more than 15 million sensor measurements around the world. So this is data from your farm that goes to their machines, that goes to their cloud and processed into their data centers with their databases in order, according to them, to have better equipment in order to sell a good machine that goes well in Brazil or Afghanistan or elsewhere. And that's fine, that's business, and they're not doing anything illegal. And maybe I'm trying to be paranoid or not, but in my humble opinion, we have a problem. Now, you say that you don't want that your car record everything that your car is doing, your modern car, and sending that data without your consent or with your awareness, because maybe say yes to a term of conditions somewhere, and sending that information to the global insurers, and therefore 2 years later, your premium goes up or down according to your behavior. You never had a crash, you know, but the data is telling that your driving went through, I don't know, you turn the curve in one way different than they expected you to do, even if you're a professional driver. You don't like that. But however, you take this like, okay, this is part of the world that we live in. And the interesting thing, and I will highlight this again, this was presented in a computer electronics show, not in a primary sector show. So this is in Las Vegas, which is one of the largest things in the world. Now, why I'm presenting this? Sorry. That was 3 years ago. Now, I captured this image yesterday, and I'm not trying to advertise, just came through the mailing at my letterbox. This company is offering a weather sensor for half price, which means that even this is still 3, 4, 5 times more than the cost of producing. And it's just a standard piece of equipment which measures a lot of things that before this technology, I don't know, 20 years ago was only a weather station that could do that. So what I'm trying to show is that the technology moves very fast into the market. And entrepreneurs used to say on the dot-com era that the moment that you are no longer an innovator, you are doing, that's what my analogy with the Master of Entrepreneurship and the MBA. The MBA manages this. The MBA takes decisions about, okay, I was 159, I sell it for 79. The entrepreneur doesn't care. It's already in the market. Now, what happened in the computer electronics show in 24? John Deere presented this. Now, this could sound science fiction, but it's just a cabin of a harvester. That's a harvester that they are presenting, which for the first time has a complete automated precision cotton planting. Absolutely automated. Take away the humans. Humans are unnecessary into this. And this has been presented, and there were a couple of farmers from Alabama saying, hey, we are using it, it's fine. I have zero experience about cotton harvesting or anything, but started to do 5 minutes reading, and I realized that's a flat surface, that's a standardized crop. The variables are limited. So you can put this automated without much challenges. And you have a business model. So what I'm trying to say to the primary sector is that technology is coming for you. Let me use a mundane analogy. McDonald's. Everyone has been in McDonald's or around or inside or whatever. I'm not judging. What I'm saying is that McDonald's doesn't do rocket science, but still is one of the most recognizable brands in the planet. Why? Because the processes and the systems and the marketing are very good. Now, technically, you don't need humans in McDonald's. You have humans for marketing purposes because you don't feel very comfortable eating from a computer, from a machine. So you have a human that says, or whatever they say, because I don't understand what they say, and then you trade. Now, you don't care from where your cotton coming is. So taking away the human factor is something that it's coming for the primary sector in one way or other, in a decade or other, in our lifetimes or not. But it's this technology is here. So what could possibly go wrong? Remember, I'm coming from the IT sector, and the whole point is to talk about data as the core asset here. Public domain, September 21, we learn that the Prime Minister of India is enlisting Amazon and Microsoft to go through the information of Indian farmers to digitize it. So remember, let me see if I can go back. No. I'm sorry, what I'm doing. I don't want to do any trial. It's not my laptop as a way of apology. I want to go back. No. Anyway, I was just going to show you something. How do I go back? Just going forward. I went back and I want to go a little bit more back. I wanted to show you this. Remember when I say this sign that we are here in the exascale world? Well, the India example, it's here, digitize everything. And that's fine. So you have a lot of data from the Indian farms, which now you give it to these guys who will digitize it, and guess what? They will sell it back to the farmers. It's business. It's capitalism. It's free market. What's wrong with that? Well, some of us have different options about how the world could look like. And capitalism is not necessarily have been around since ever. But I see certain red flags here, or at least orange flags. If we're talking about human food. Now, what could possibly go wrong in 2021? Apologies. 3 years later, and this is dated March 14, 24. Today is March 19, 24. Bayer, another small kid. I mean, this guy has been around since ever. It's business as usual, and I'm not trying to present a radical anarchist approach. I'm saying, look, there are ups and downs. There are trade-offs. So Bayer, it's developed in collaboration with, guess who? Microsoft and Ernst & Young, generative AI system using proprietary, where it is somewhere, proprietary data, or anyway, it says somewhere. So I highlighted here that you have Microsoft, you have Bayer, you have the GenAI system into the digital offerings, which is the equipment. And this is a broad opportunity for collaboration with other offerings. Remember when I spoke about integration and heterogeneity? Designed as a global capability, the tool will benefit millions by democratizing access. I put this in bold because I can see this in the same way that Microsoft Windows created something that was democratic because, let's face it, made a lot of people, much more than ever, use the standard computer, the personal computer. Some of us can argue that the Microsoft platform also brought a lot of issues. And that's an open discussion. My point here is we're talking about the future of food in the world. So it's improving global food security, but someone has the key. It's like with the money systems. I mean, we all have credit cards, which are the most promiscuous piece of plastic in the world. You can throw that credit card anywhere in the world, and Visa and MasterCard assure you that it works. You don't even think about it, but it's just absolutely incredible. That piece of technology comes and goes everywhere, and it works. And you are happy to be hostage of that system because it gives you a lot of advantages. And it's your personal data, it's your financial, it gives you advantages. This is about the food. Maybe I'm just getting old and grumpy, but I see problems here. So that was the introduction. So now I want to tell you what are we thinking with the Listen to the Land project. We think about an agricultural decision engine, which is a multi-scale system with data flowing up and down, and I will show a graph presenting that in a couple of slides. So what I'm trying to say is that the simulation of complex systems, what happened in different parts of the system, it's very complex. It requires a monumental amount of computing. And that's why the large companies are the only ones trying to do it. But I'm not proposing breakthrough things. I'm proposing opportunities. Because no one is doing this in a rush, because it's complex, it's monumental. I call them an umbrella project. It's like going for gold. If you fail, but you still can, I don't know, sell shovels or jeans. You're trying to dig for oil. Well, you fail. Okay, you open a petrol station or a workshop. Umbrella projects allows you to do derivative things. Data in the primary sector allows you to do a number of things, but be aware of what's happening. That's a concept that I'm presenting. When I say heterogeneous distributed computing system exascale to the edge, it's a technical concept which is trying to highlight, hey, we can do a lot of processing of information where the data is created. You would say, what for? Well, to collect and combine with everything else. Farmers are price takers by default, but they know a lot. What would happen with that knowledge combined with the knowledge outside the farm gate, but not just in the catchment? Sorry, 2 minutes. Yes, but what happened in the rest of the world with the drought in Ethiopia, with the high-frequency trader in New York trading commodities? You can take a decision much faster. So I want to summarize with the graph that I want to see if sorry. And here it is. So the graph that the system that we are proposing is agriculture empowered by supercomputing, means that we can put some very powerful sensors which are cheap and which are distributed at less than 1 kilometer or even less in the ground. You would say, but we have satellites for that. Guess what? Do you own the satellites? Do you have access to that? Are they capture data from you, but they are not giving it. So we submitted a proposal to the Minister of Primary Industries about this. And then you have aggregators. I mean, you need to collect the data and then you need to network. But I don't have internet. Guess what? Can be done without internet. Can be done with the wideband or unused TV stations. There's a lot of things that can be done on the technology layers. Then you have aggregators which bring everything together. And this system could be really cost effective because it doesn't require a lot of novel technology. Well, novel technology, but in a clever way. Above this is what exists today. You still need the supercomputing to process all the monumental amount of information. And these days, these observations flow up and the expectations flow down. And we have different realms of the system between here and there. So I want to finish, let me see a few things. We started, and this is the outreach part, we started doing in the IT world, the Birds of a Feather session in the supercomputing conference in Denver last year. People from the University of Arizona, from the National Science Foundation, there's a former executive from Intel that has an agri-tech company now. This paper has been published. You can see the diagram here. I'm presenting in Colombia. a few months ago. This is the weather stations that we presented, and this is a technical thing that. So essentially, I want to reach the conclusion that if you want to go fast, go long, but it's time to go together in order to go far. Thank you very much. And then, of course, these are the questions for you.
Well, I answered some of them last night.
Yeah, no, that you just scratched it.
So